There are moments in life when everything becomes quiet, the noise fades away, the distractions disappear, and suddenly, you are left alone with your thoughts, alone with your emotions, alone with the battles nobody else can see. And sometimes, that silence feels uncomfortable, because silence forces you to face the things you normally try to avoid. Your fears, your pain, your questions. But silence is not always empty. Sometimes, silence is where transformation begins. When life becomes quiet, truth becomes clearer. You begin noticing things you ignored before. You begin understanding what truly controls your heart. The silence reveals your fears, your struggles, your weaknesses, but it also reveals how deeply you need God. Because many people only search for God when the noise of life disappears. And sometimes, God allows silence because He wants your full attention. Many people expect God to speak loudly, but often, God speaks in stillness, in quiet prayers, in lonely nights, in moments when nobody else is around. Sometimes, God removes distractions, so you can finally hear Him clearly. Not every silent season is punishment. Some silent seasons are invitations. Invitations to grow, invitations to trust, invitations to become closer to God. Silence builds strength that noise never could. Because maturity is not reacting to everything. Not every insult deserves your response. Not every argument deserves your attention. Sometimes, remaining silent takes greater strength than speaking in anger. And through those quiet moments, God teaches patience, self-control, wisdom, and emotional discipline. The silence changes you slowly, but deeply. The strongest growth often happens in silence. A seed grows underground. Before anyone sees the tree, the sunrise arrives quietly, before it brightens the earth. And in the same way, God often develops people in hidden seasons. Seasons where nobody notices your progress. Seasons where nobody applauds your struggle. But even in hidden places, God is shaping your character, building your faith, preparing your future. There are seasons when heaven feels silent, prayers seem unanswered, doors remain closed, and hope feels distant. You keep asking questions, but the answers do not come immediately. And slowly, you begin wondering if God still hears you. But silence does not mean God is absent. Sometimes, God is preparing you for a season you are not ready for yet. Not everything deserves your reaction. Some battles are distractions. Some arguments only steal your peace. And some people do not deserve access to your energy. Wisdom understands when to speak and when to remain silent, because peace is valuable. And sometimes, silence protects your peace better than words ever could. Even Jesus Christ withdrew into quiet places, away from crowds, away from distractions, away from noise, because silence creates space for spiritual strength. Throughout Scripture, many people encountered God during quiet seasons, not in chaos, not in confusion, but in stillness. Sometimes, the quiet place becomes the place where God changes you most. In all this, don't forget that God uses silence to change His people. It teaches patience. It teaches endurance. It teaches deeper trust in God. And slowly, you begin becoming stronger, wiser, more disciplined, more peaceful. Not because life became easier, but because silence taught you how to depend on God differently. The silence that once felt painful begins creating strength inside you. There comes a moment when every person reaches a breaking point. A moment when you feel you cannot carry the burden anymore. A moment when your strength is gone. Your confidence is gone. Your answers are gone. And all you have left is faith. That is where many people quit. But that is also where transformation begins. Because when your strength ends, God's strength begins. When your ability runs out, His power takes over. What if the silence was never meant to destroy you? What if it was preparing you? What if God was using the silence to build a version of you that could carry the blessing you have been praying for? A stronger version, a wiser version, a deeper version, a version that trusts God. So, if you are walking through a silent season right now, do not mistake silence for abandonment. Do not mistake waiting for rejection. And do not mistake God's quietness for His absence. Because while you were waiting, God was working. While you were questioning, God was preparing. While you felt forgotten, God was shaping your future. One day, the prayers will make sense. The waiting will make sense. The pain will make sense. And you will realize that the silence was never empty. It was filled with God's purpose, filled with God's preparation, filled with God's presence. So stand firm. Keep believing. Keep praying, keep trusting, because the same God who carried you through the silence will lead you into the promise. And when that day comes, you will not remember the silence as your defeat. You will remember it as the season that made you stronger, the season that built your faith, the season that brought you closer to God. Because even in silence, God is still speaking, God is still moving, and God is still working. Your story is not over. The best chapter is still ahead.